Aline had just finished scrubbing the last corner of the marble lobby floor when she stepped outside into the grey morning light. The sky threatened rain, the air heavy with the scent of wet concrete. Her back ached, but she welcomed the ache. It was proof that she was working, that she was surviving. She adjusted the strap on her old tote bag and began her walk toward the bus stop. Just as she reached the edge of the sidewalk, tires screeched. A black Range Rover sped through a puddle of thick brown mud, splashing it across Aline's front like an explosion. Her once clean uniform clung to her skin, soaked in filth. Her bag dropped to the ground. She stood frozen. From the driver's side window, laughter rang out, high-pitched, mocking. Aline turned slowly. Behind the wheel sat Claire Whitmore, blonde, gleaming, perfectly manicured, wearing oversized sunglasses and a cruel smile. "You really should be more careful where you stand, sweetheart," Claire said, the sarcasm thick in her voice before rolling up the window and driving off without another glance. What Claire didn't see was the sleek black Mercedes that had pulled up behind her moments before. Its tinted windows revealed nothing of the man inside, but he had seen everything. Aline stood there in silence, drenched in muddy water. Her chest rose and fell as she tried to collect herself. The few passers-by avoided her gaze. No one offered a napkin, a hand, or even a glance of concern. She bent down, picked up her tote bag, and pressed forward. She didn't have time to be angry. The bus would arrive in 10 minutes, and she couldn't afford to miss it. Her daughter Maya was waiting for her at home, 15 years old and already more mature than most adults Aline knew. Bright, curious, driven. Maya was the reason Aline kept going. The neighborhood Aline worked in was one of Atlanta's most exclusive gated mansions, private security, gardeners in uniforms, luxury cars humming quietly along polished driveways. Claire Whitmore was the queen of this world, wife of Richard Whitmore, a man who'd made millions investing in tech startups. Claire didn't work. She hosted brunches, organized charity galas, and made it her personal mission to make people like Aline feel small. This wasn't the first time Claire had humiliated Aline. She once snapped her fingers to get her attention. Another time she made a scene when Aline entered through the main lobby instead of the service entrance. But today felt different. The mud, the laugh. It stuck to Aline more than the stain on her clothes. Meanwhile, the black Mercedes eased away from the curb, following the Range Rover at a steady pace. Inside sat a tall, broad-shouldered man in a navy suit. His name was Elijah Carter. He was returning to the city after 6 years overseas, now the CEO of a fast-growing tech company that had just gone public. Forbes had recently listed him as one of the most influential black executives in America. But none of that mattered right now, because the woman who'd just been drenched in mud looked painfully familiar. Elijah leaned forward, narrowing his eyes as the Range Rover pulled into the circular drive of a mansion at the top of the hill. Claire stepped out, laughing into her phone, completely unaware of the presence trailing her. He reached into the glove box, pulled out a pen, and scribbled a note on the back of a business card. Then, without a word, he turned the car in the direction Claire had come from. By the time Aline arrived home, the mud on her uniform had dried stiff. She entered the small apartment she shared with Maya, trying not to look upset, but her daughter immediately sensed something was off. "Mama, what happened?" Aline smiled softly. "Just a little accident, baby, I'm fine." But Maya wasn't fooled. She stared at her mother's stained clothes, then followed her to the laundry room. Was it someone at work again? Aline didn't answer. She didn't need to. Maya exhaled sharply. "One day they'll regret treating you like that." Aline chuckled, tired. "I don't need them to regret anything. I just need them to leave me be." The next morning, Aline took a different route through the side of the building, hoping to avoid another run-in. She scrubbed the same floors, wiped the same handrails, smiled at the same blank faces. Her uniform was clean again, but she still felt the mud on her skin. Across the complex, Claire Whitmore was preparing for her usual Friday brunch at the estate clubhouse. Guests arrived in convertibles and heels, their laughter echoing through the courtyard. Claire stood near the fountain, sipping her mimosa, tossing her hair over her shoulder as she greeted other women in pastel dresses. And then the laughter stopped. A black Mercedes pulled up slowly and parked in the space reserved for the board president. The doors opened. Elijah stepped out. Tall, commanding, unmistakable. Claire's smile faltered. She blinked, then forced her lips back into a smirk. But Elijah didn't smile back. His eyes locked onto hers. Cold, calm. He walked past the other women, who'd fallen into an awkward silence, and approached Claire directly. "You must be Claire Whitmore," he said. His voice was smooth, deep, and carried weight. Claire adjusted her sunglasses. "I am. And you are—" "Elijah Carter." The color drained from Claire's face. "Oh, Mr. Carter, I had no idea you were—" "I know." He reached into his jacket and handed her the business card. On it, written in neat block letters, was one sentence. "I saw what you did yesterday." Claire's fingers trembled slightly. "I'll be meeting with your board later this week," Elijah added, nodding once. "I'd appreciate it if you were there too. We have a lot to discuss." Then, without another word, he turned and walked inside the clubhouse, leaving Claire standing by the fountain, surrounded by women who were suddenly very quiet. Back at the service entrance, Aline rinsed her mop for the last time that day. She didn't know what had just happened across the courtyard. She didn't see the tension rippling through the social fabric of the wealthy elite she cleaned up after, and she had no idea that the man who'd stepped out of the Mercedes had once known her family. But change had already begun, and it was headed straight for her. If you're enjoying this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you never miss a moment like this. The story continues right now. The next few days passed in strange silence. Claire barely left the house. The usual brunch invites and community meetings were now declined without explanation. Her name, once spoken with admiration, now carried a shadow of suspicion. Behind her gates, Claire paced. She had Googled Elijah Carter the moment he walked away from her. Billionaire, public speaker, tech visionary. But what made her stomach twist wasn't his resume. It was his timing. He hadn't been at that brunch by chance, and that note. "I saw what you did yesterday." That meant only one thing. He had seen her humiliate that woman. The cleaning woman. Claire hadn't even cared to learn her name. But Elijah had seen everything. And now he was here. Aline continued her routine as if nothing had changed. But small things began to shift. On Tuesday morning, she found a new mop and set of supplies waiting in her storage closet, replacing the worn-out tools she'd been using for over a year. No note, no explanation. On Wednesday, the front desk attendant, who had always ignored her presence, greeted her with a quiet "good morning" and held the elevator for her. By Thursday, the building manager, who'd always passed her like a ghost, asked if she needed help carrying her supplies upstairs. It was subtle, nothing loud, but the air had shifted, and Aline, while puzzled, felt it. Then came Friday. Elijah returned to the building that morning, not as a visitor but as the newest board-appointed resident representative. The complex had recently sold a premium penthouse to his company, which had gifted it to him as part of his return to Atlanta. The community newsletter called it an exciting new partnership with a visionary leader. Claire read the headline 3 times before pouring herself another glass of wine. Elijah hadn't forgotten. He was embedding himself into the very heart of her world. And worse, everyone was welcoming him. Later that day, Aline was polishing the lobby floors when she heard footsteps behind her. She turned and froze. "Elijah?" He smiled gently, taking off his sunglasses. "I was hoping you'd remember me." Aline stepped back, eyes wide. "Little Eli? From the east side?" "Not so little anymore," he chuckled. They hugged. It had been nearly 20 years. Elijah and Aline had grown up just blocks apart. She had been a teenager helping raise her siblings. He had been the quiet boy next door, always carrying books, always dreaming bigger. Aline had once helped him with a school project when no one else had time for him. "You remembered me," she said softly. "I never forgot you," he replied. "You were one of the first people who made me believe I mattered." She swallowed hard. "Look at you now." "No," he said, stepping back to look at her. "Look at you. You kept going. You survived. You raised a daughter. You held your dignity in a place that doesn't always respect it." Aline blinked, trying to hold back tears. "Why are you really here, Elijah?" He exhaled. "Because I saw what she did, and I couldn't let it go." Aline shook her head. "You don't need to get involved in that." "But I am involved," he said, "because people like Claire don't change unless someone makes them face the truth." She looked away. "So you think I haven't faced worse? She's just one of many. I don't want revenge. I want peace." Elijah nodded. "Then maybe we can both find a way to get it." The following Monday, the condominium's annual community forum was held in the Grand Hall. Dozens of residents filled the gold-trimmed room, sipping coffee and waiting for the new representative to introduce himself. Claire sat near the front, her face tight, jaw clenched. Elijah stepped up to the microphone. He spoke about community, equity, accountability. He spoke about the invisible workers who made the place run every day, the janitors, the doormen, the gardeners. He spoke about respect. Then, without naming names, he described what he'd witnessed one rainy morning, how a woman in uniform was laughed at after being deliberately splashed with mud, how no one stepped in, how no one apologized. The room fell into a hush. Claire shifted in her seat. "I'm not here to punish anyone," Elijah continued, "but I believe a community is only as strong as how it treats the people it thinks are the weakest." He paused, looking out across the crowd. "And I promise you this, any behavior that threatens that dignity will not be tolerated as long as I'm a part of this place." Murmurs filled the room. A few people clapped, others nodded. Claire sat frozen, her eyes locked on the table in front of her. 2 weeks later, Claire was asked to step down from the HOA board. An internal ethics complaint had been submitted anonymously, and several residents confirmed patterns of elitist and discriminatory behavior over the years. Claire denied everything, but her reputation had already crumbled. By the end of the month, the Whitmores put their mansion up for sale and quietly moved out of the community. One morning, Aline arrived for her shift and was surprised to find her supervisor waiting for her with a clipboard. "We're offering you a new role," he said. "Lead facilities coordinator. Better pay, benefits, you've earned it." Aline stared at him. "Why now?" He smiled awkwardly. "Let's just say, some people finally started paying attention." That evening, Aline walked home beneath a glowing Atlanta sunset, her new uniform crisp, her posture tall. Maya met her at the door, already holding the acceptance letter from a pre-college program for engineering. They laughed, they cried, and that night, as Aline tucked Maya into bed, she whispered something she hadn't said in years. "I think we're going to be okay." Meanwhile, Elijah stood on the balcony of his penthouse, looking out over the city. He held a photo in his hand, an old one from a neighborhood block party years ago. In it, a teenage Aline was holding a plate of food, smiling, while young Elijah peeked shyly from behind her. He smiled. Some people never forgot kindness, and others would never forget the day they were held accountable for cruelty. Thanks for watching. If this story moved you, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because we've got more powerful stories coming your way.